Here.
Mr. Norris?
Here.
Mr. Ritzenthaler?
Here.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call please.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenthaler?
Yes.
Mrs. PreK-8? Yes. Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Cooley. I'm the superintendent of Norwalk City School District. Appreciate you coming here tonight to hear the factual information about the exciting adventures we lay ahead of us. So we are looking to build a brand new PK, pre-kindergarten through 8th grade school directly across the street here on Shady Lane Drive. So obviously a lot of benefits to that, so I'm going to get into that. And we have a lot of experts, financial experts here tonight as well. So I'm going to not talk the specific numbers of Norwalk City School District and what this bond issue means for each of us, because we have experts in the room, and that is not me. What I will talk about what this value is for the school and our community if we are able to make this happen. What we're wanting to do is 5 old schools go into one school. So we start at Maplehurst, we go to Pleasant, we go to Lee, we go to Main Street, we go to Norwalk Middle School. Transitions are not good for kids. So all of you in the room that have children and understand what that looks like, that is not good for kids to have that many transitions to go through. So if you look at all new school campuses, when you have the ability to do something new and fresh for the first time, you're wanting a single campus. And the beauty is we are going from 5 buildings down to one across the street at Norwalk High School. So if your student, if your child will go through the Norwalk City School District, 2 buildings. Over there, move across the street to here. We have done a lot of work to get to this point. So this is kind of exciting spot for us because it's the handoff. It is the handoff to the people in our community, the voices of Norwalk, to say, do we want to move forward with all the work that's been done on this proposal? We have been in a task force, so some in the room have been on that task force with us to study and evaluate where do we want to go? What do we actually want to do for the future of Norwalk City School District? That's been a critical part. We haven't just landed here as of a couple days ago. This has been years and years of work in the making to get to where we are today, to actually go to the voters and say, you get to decide on what we want to do here going forward. We have worked with Ohio Facility Construction Commission. So that is a group that we are working with. They went through all of our buildings. They've studied multiple years. A decade plus ago, 5-6 years ago, they've looked at what are our buildings? What's the conditions of our buildings? What would it take to renovate these 5 different buildings? When you look at that, right now, they've established that it makes 0 sense to renovate those buildings. Renovate those 5 elementary buildings and Norwalk Middle School. What is that? What is that reason? I know some of you have gone, some of you are truckers, some of you have gone to school here all the way through and have been at those very buildings that we're talking about. Looking at it right now, if we would put all the money it would take to upgrade to get the renovations done in those 5 student buildings, we're around $69 million. The beauty that we're looking at right now is that this project across the street is a $100 million project. And here's the best part. The best news that I can deliver tonight is we have $52.5 million through the Ohio Facility Construction Commission that says this is available to you, Norwalk City School District. If you act, meaning if this issue is passed in November, we are going to release the funds to you to build a $100 million facility. So if I'm looking at those numbers right there, we are saying it's $21 million more to renovate 5 student buildings. So you spend $69 million to renovate 5 buildings to then, at the end of the day, as the outcome is to have 5 old buildings that are renovated. Or we spend $21 million less than that to have a $100 million facility across the street for a PK-8 facility. What I want to say to all of you now is I want to have questions throughout. We want this to be interactive. So whether I'm speaking, whether some of our guest speakers are talking, put your hand up and ask a question, because the last thing I want is we go through the whole speech, the whole presentation, and you have to wait on those questions. I don't like to go places where I have to wait on questions when you say, I have something specific to what you just said, please ask that question. So this is not formal in that sense. If you have a question, if anything I've said thus far, you want to put your hand up, we want to make sure we have Q&A instantly. There will be question and answer at the end as well, but it's critical that we have questions right now as we go throughout. So I'm talking the need, the value of a brand new school across the street on Shady Lane Drive. We'll have the financial and those pieces that will follow me as well. Looking at the 5, there's obviously a lot of different things, but if you want to boil it down to the big topics that make this critical and why it's valuable for Norwalk City School District. The first one, appropriate classroom space and meeting rooms. If you have seen Maplehurst, if you have seen our elementary schools, we have teachers, therapists, speech language pathologists working with students in a hallway, wide open. As educators, I'm telling you, these things, you have to be in confidential spaces, but the bottom line is we do not have space. We don't have, though, that second area. So when I say meeting rooms, those places have to exist, because if they don't, we're going to continue doing what we've done, which is we have classrooms happening with the classrooms we have, but kids are out in hallways. Things that should not be happening in hallways are happening right now because we have to make do with the space we have. So that is a critical part here. And when I say, how do we get to that local number? How did we get to 47, I'll round up, call it 48 million for our local share? The big part of that is additional classroom space that we need to add to be sufficient for our district. That was the big part. We added 41,000 square feet into the total because the building that was going to be assisted with us through OFCC was going to be far less than that. So you understand, we aren't going to build a building and then not have space the day we move into that. Because if you know other school districts, and I know administrators in other districts, they have done that. Some are very local districts, in fact, that people have moved into a brand new building, everyone's excited, and then week 2, you're like, why did we plan for this? Why did we do this? We have to have available space that speaks to that. So 41,000 square feet, that's going to be the add to make sure that we have not only the classroom space, but also those flexible spaces where, whether I'm in small group or I'm one-on-one, things that are confidential should be in a confidential space. That's what we're speaking to. The other big part of what this, of our local share includes is a metal roof. The task force, the group that's worked on this to get to this point, has put value on a metal roof, stating that we're having a brand new building that if you would go with an asphalt shingle, clearly cheaper, clearly less expensive, that does not last what that building is intended to last. So as a local task force, we determined that that is a significant piece to have. Is metal roof more expensive than asphalt shingle? Absolutely. But we're looking for a one-time to match the building. Yes, there'll be repairs. I'm not saying metal roof never has repairs, but it's a one-time rather than potentially 2 to 3 times to replace shingle on the life of that building. So that's a critical part. The other part we're looking at, we need to make sure playgrounds, this obviously is through 8th grade. We want to make sure there's competitive fields. So that's built into that space as well. That's built into that acreage that we need across the street on Shady Lane. That's critical. 2 other areas, not a significant part, but when you're building into the project, we say central office being at this build, at the new build, is critical. Currently, if you're not aware, that's on Benedict. So central office, so you have 20 to 22 individuals. Some of those are Mrs. Gerber and her tech department. It is not very good when those individuals have to go and cover 6 buildings. So now I'm talking Norwalk High School. So it is critical that central office is with kids, because any place, any district that does not have central office with their kids, that is not a great setup. You want to make sure central office, the very people working with your kids, are seeing kids and knowing what's going on. That makes me a better superintendent. That makes Joyce Dupont a better treasurer, being with kids and working in that area. So that is critical. The other part on the locally funded piece is the bus garage. If you're looking at, we're bringing our entire district here, all of our kids. So going with projections, if we're in that 2,400 range, so that's our enrollment in several years from now? It probably will grow, but right now I'm sticking with the numbers that were presented to us. We're gonna have our people here. We wanna make sure that we're not going to where we currently have to go and then come back here, pick up kids, and then drop kids off. So it does make sense to have the bus garage here. So those aren't high dollar pieces, those last two things. When you're talking about $100 million project, you're at 2.5 million for those two areas, those last two things. And I know some would say, why does central office have to go? And I can give you a lot more reasons than I'm gonna talk tonight as to the value of why it's important for all adults to be with kids. Second one, increased course offerings and opportunities. Since I've been superintendent, I have valued the fact that anytime we can do something for kids, that's more opportunities, that makes school a magnet for kids to want to come to our school, we want to do that. We've done a lot with our STEM, Nerd Nation. We've done a lot with drama and musicals. Whatever that niche is for a student, we want that to be at Norwalk City School District because we want people to come here. And let's face it, some don't love school. They're part of 7:30 to 2:30 or 8 o'clock to 3. Like, that's not loved by all kids. We know that. You know, you're with your own kids. What is the part that says why I like to go to Norwalk? What is that value? Some it's sports, some it's on the stage, some it's playing my trombone. Whatever that is, we want to give kids opportunities. And the beauty of this, with increased course offerings, think about this. All of our kids will be in one space. What does that allow us to do? Special needs, special education. There are students that we are actually busing to other schools because we do not have the space to do programs in-house. I am biased, as you know, I am superintendent, so I'm a bit biased here, but we're gonna hire the best people. We wanna serve our kids here. So I don't like the fact that we're putting some of our students on a bus to another school, to another district, to another facility, because we can't do that in-house. So that's a critical thing. With size, with space, we hire our people, we're not having to send our students out. That is super critical to me. If you think, my kid is gifted, I'd like to take an elective, I shouldn't be taking, say I'm a 6th grader. I can go to 7th grade. I can go to 8th grade and take a math class. I've been a longtime high school principal, and I can tell you, we've had middle school students who are taking high school classes. What did we do? We paid for transportation for that to happen. You think about what that opens up on the elementary level when you have a PK-8. You think about my child excels at reading, my child excels in English. Think about it, your child's a 3rd grader. What could he or she do with there? We have flexible spaces, we have flexible rooms. We can say, okay, for this, from a master scheduling standpoint, your child goes here. It's fluid. It's simple to do those things within the master schedule. That's what's very exciting. Teachers, administrators, we've had that talk. That is what's exciting because right now you're limited because we have all these little islands throughout Norwalk and we're saying, it's too difficult. Time I get that student here, get that student back, well then you've missed that second class that you shouldn't be missing. But think about that. If your child excels in one area, 2 areas, wants to do electives that otherwise are not permitted to him or her, that's opening the door. And like I said, that's why we do what we do. This is not about one individual. That's not about the Board of Education. We're talking about doing something that's long-term, that's going to impact thousands and thousands of kids and families in Norwalk. But to me, of all those things, that's one of the most exciting ones because that allows principals, teachers, you as parents to be creative with, yeah, my kid can go here. Well, we can make that happen now. We can make that happen now. Third bullet point here, enhanced safety and security. We know our buildings, you've seen on some of the FAQ sheets that have been distributed, average age is 85. We have buildings that are over 100 years old. League, central office, when we average all our buildings right now, so the 5 kid buildings we're talking, and central office, a place where kids are not, you're at 85 years. But when you're talking 2 buildings that are over 100 years old, what does that mean? They're not set for today's standard for safety and security. My teaching before Dr. Babkin hired me in Norwalk in 2002, it was in the Department of Youth Services. That is locked up juveniles that were age 13 to juvie lifers. That was a #1 focus for us. I taught social studies, but what do you think the focus was? It was safety and security. And we had to go through sally ports. We had to go through all these doors to make things happen. You think about the builds of today for safety and security, vastly different than any of our buildings have. And I'm very proud of what we've done from a safety standpoint. from a layered safety standpoint with what we have. We have old buildings that, yes, do not have Sally Port doors. Any place you go in a new building, you know you go to a locked space, very visible to the office, then you get buzzed in. We have door security. As you know, we've added strategics this past year, and this is impressive because this is across the state of Ohio that every staff member can call for inside help or the chief, the sheriff, and will be here just by a push of a button. So Norwalk has done a lot of layered security here, but one thing we have not changed is the buildings itself. The buildings itself, a new build across the street will be built drastically different. So most of you have been in different districts. I've seen those schools when that's the case. We have a lot of doors that are open when you talk about our 5 kid buildings to secure those doors, to make sure that the build itself keeps our kids safe. You look at Mike Connie. Mike Connie was hired last year by the board as a school resource officer. We have one Mike Connie. We have 6 kid buildings. We understand the value of having one campus. And I'm saying, yes, we're divided across the street, but that's still a campus. You think about what that adds from safety security. So that's not only on these individuals from the build standpoint with Garmin Miller, the build's going to change that, but obviously people, because people are the most important piece with this. And Mike County is a critical part in our layered safety. That's far superior than having 6 buildings across Norwalk. Improve the efficiency. So you probably can think of all the different efficiencies that it could be. I will speak to some. There are so many more that I will not list tonight. People have asked the question, is it staffing? Can we do with less? I can tell you we would have one less principal for sure. We can have one less principal for sure. Where we are efficient is right now we have aides, we have specialists that are going between multiple buildings. So time is spent, money is spent, mileage is spent, going from building to building to building, and you're always structuring a master schedule that fits for each of the student buildings. That will end. That will end because those aides that sorry, I can't get from this building to that, so what do? We have to hire another aide. Those things will be far superior in staffing our buildings. That efficiency would be very clean, and I look forward to that part. You look at parent pickup, parent drop-off. You know, how many have like been through the nightmare of at Maplehurst and seen the wrap around onto West Main during the close of school? Those things we're looking at, what are you doing here? How are you changing that dynamic when you have a brand new school across the street with widened street, different dismissal times, having the ability in the design project that parents can get in and be separate from where the buses come in. Those things are going to be much more efficient. I'm looking forward to that. So you can go on and on and on about our efficiencies. That is going to be, we're going to be saving a lot of money. And you think about busing, we're going to one central location. We're going to one central location. On the same front with busing, we are not taking kids from one school to another because right now that's what's happening. We're having a shuttle basically kids from one school to the next. So all those things will be eliminated. So is it going to be more work for Corey and Tim in our transportation department? Yes, absolutely. But once we figure this out, that will be cleaned up significantly in that efficiency. So from a management side, it's great. From a parent side, it's great. And obviously from a student side, those efficiencies are going to be built in. I'm very much looking forward to that. The last one and potentially the most important one. A lot of you have been here when Norwalk High School was brand new. And what did that do to the community? What did that do for the city of Norwalk? I was hired a year after Norwalk began in 2001. I came in 2002. I heard the stories. I did not know what Norwalk was like. I did not know what the school district was like. I knew none of those, but I heard stories of lifetime truckers that said what that meant to the people in this community. It completely changes our mentality. Think about when you go into a new space. How do you feel? How do you feel? Going back to, is the school a magnet? Is it a place I want to show up to every day? Does it have flexible learning spaces and not old school like we have traditional learning? It's a square box and that's what we do. Think about that space. The fact that, okay, I might be grade 6. I can then open a door and I can be with grade 5 and we can do an activity that might be mixing the grades. It could be a cross-curricular activity. Social studies guy, I'm going to tie it to a math activity. Think about those on just the design, and I look over here at how things are designed nowadays with new builds. That's completely, like that is going to be wide open to us in that next phase. in the next phase forward. So that is very exciting. So there's nothing better than having spirit, pride, and culture, and a mentality that says, yeah, I'm proud to be a trucker. I'm glad I'm in this district. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. DePon, the treasurer of our district.
So tonight, I have some financial experts to come in and talk to you because Brad and I have been going around talking to people and we're getting a lot of questions, and I just thought tonight, instead of listening to me talk about this, I brought in some experts. So first off, we have our county auditor, Roland Ketch, because this is a $100 million project. $52 million of state money is coming in for it, but we have a pretty big local ask, $47.7 million. And everybody has been getting their green postcards in the mail, county auditor Ketch, and becoming concerned about this because taxes are hard to understand, valuation is hard to understand. Brad keeps telling me, make it simple, stop rambling on about it. So I thought maybe County Auditor Ketch could answer some questions about this and explain it a little bit better, and just provide his wisdom. And he would love to answer questions, so please, if you have questions, of course, don't ask him about your own personal house. So yeah, let him take over for a while.
Well, thank you, folks. My name is Roland Ketch. I am your county auditor, and I have a bunch of folks that I work with that help me do a job to serve you folks. My number one job is to instill confidence in government, but my official title is Chief Fiscal Officer of the county, and I do the revenue side for all the political subdivisions, the towns, the villages, the schools, the fire districts, the ambulance districts, and over the years, Norwalk schools had their levy, and specifically on November 3rd, 1998, we voted in a bond levy. And a bond levy is for the payments, the debt service. That's really what you're voting on. And you have to understand the old banker in me, and you're going to hear another banker today, and he's helped out with a bunch of other bond issues, is that every year I look at what the payment schedule is. And based on the value of the district, that's where we come up with what the actual tax rate is. And we work with a lot of estimates, and I won't have the final value of this district until sometime in November. Usually about the third week in November, we'll be turning in our tax rate final abstract here in October, and then it takes a while for the Department of Taxation to actually come up with that final value. And based on market, and I'm sure our bond counsel is going to tell us about that, they'll come up with a payment schedule, and then from there is where we actually set the rates. So everything right now is just a snapshot in time in the fact of what the values that I have that are certified currently. The new values that are coming have not been certified, and so I've not been able to use those in this calculation on the 5.4 mils. So, you have to understand that in every single case, I stand between the taxpayer and the tax spender in every single case. And I am here to make sure that there is equity and that there is balance and that people are treated fairly. So I'm the guy who sets the tax rates, and that is statutorily. I'm also the guy that comes up and I'm responsible for the values as well as we review what the market is doing. And that's really what we're doing at this point. People have built equity in their home because there's value out there. And that's exactly what the school's trying to do here in building a new building. And you just have to understand in your own mind what that value is going forward. And but the thing I will say about real estate values is the internet has changed everything. It used to be that you put a sign in your front yard and that was your best sale tool. Not anymore. Anyone in the United States could buy a piece of property in Huron County, always have been able to, but the ability to get that message out has gotten very quick, and it's everywhere. And we've had folks from many different states buy property here in Huron County. And I'm a little biased. I think Huron County is a great place to live, work, and enjoy the area that we have. But I just want to let you know, I'm the guy who sets the tax rates, and I'm always available to talk to as far as if you want to know anything about your property, anything about other political subdivisions. I answer all kinds of questions. I'm an old banker, and we have we're here to serve, and that's what we do in the auditor's office. So throughout the evening, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. And really, questions just for you. Okay. Roland will be here. All night.
I'll turn it over to bond counsel.
Next, we have Mike Burns. He is with Barry Financial. He helps with the underwriting of the bonds, and he is an investment banker. He works with a lot of the school districts around here. He's been helping with different facility projects. And he is going to go over some of the different financial parts to this exact bond issue. So
Well, thank you, everyone. I had to take my tie off, so I didn't want to look like a banker too much. Thanks for having me tonight, and it's great to see a lot of faces. I was here a couple of months ago talking as well, and it's great to see some familiar faces out here, so thanks for showing up. And it's a great turnout, especially on a nice night like tonight. And thank you, Augur, for coming tonight. This says a lot about you and what you think of the community and want to be involved in support of this school district as well as all the other school districts. So thank you for your time coming out. He was instrumental when it came to figuring out what the millage rate should be on this bond issue that's coming on the ballot here in a 2 months. So having him involved was very helpful. So thank you for all your help. Again, my name is Mike Burns. I'm with Baird, and I'm here to talk about numbers. And everything that your superintendent mentioned before, that's all the feel-good story stuff. That's what should really matter when you're at the voter box and voting. You should be thinking about your kids, thinking about your grandkids, thinking about your neighbors' kids. I got 4 kids myself, and safety is the most important thing to me. And it kind of blows my mind when I walk into some of these buildings and don't see all the safety measures that a lot of other school districts have throughout the state of Ohio. Not to say these schools aren't safe. They're very safe, as the superintendent pointed out, but they could be more safe. Another thing I've seen is there's a lot of technology. You know, I'm looking around here, there's a lot of good technology here. But in new schools, I work with a couple of hundred school districts throughout the state, so I see a lot of schools. Some of those schools have unbelievable technology. And let's face it, that's where the world's going. It's the technology side behind. And these old buildings, 100 years old, Wi-Fi probably doesn't even work too well, right? Inside some of those classrooms. So I think that everything your superintendent said is probably the most important thing you should think about when you vote yes or no in November. What I'm going to talk about is what most people vote upon, right? Everyone wants to vote yes because of the kids and all that, but it really comes down to dollars and cents. That's why most people vote yes or no. I hate to say it, but that's the world we live in. The great news about this school district, so I was talking to the architect, which, by the way, Garvin Miller does a great job. We're going to be in very good hands with them. But we were talking about what do we think, bond issue is going to happen in November. And we talked about this is a really good deal here at Norwalk. It's one of our best deals. I work with 3 different deals with Garvin Miller right now. I have 8 bond issues on the ballot in November, which is a lot. And this is one of my best clients because it's such a good deal for the taxpayers. And the reason I can say that is because of all the hard work that your administration, your board, the architects did an amazing job. This wasn't something they did overnight. This wasn't something they thought about when they just went out for a new bond issue. Your architect, Garvin Miller, spent a lot of time, along with the superintendent and treasurer, getting the state share amount up significantly. And I can't take our eye off the ball when it comes to that. That's a major, major win. How much more money do you get from the state? Because of that square footage?
A lot of million.
A lot of million. She's gonna figure out a lot of million before it's over. But a lot of million. It's a lot of money, and that's why this is such a strong deal for the kids. We're only asking for $47.78 million. And I say only because that's a lot of money, right? It's a lot of money to you and me. But if you look at the bond issues on the ballot come November, statewide, there are at least 6 or 7 above 100 million. Asking, not the 100 million value that you're talking about, the project cost. The ask to the voters is well over $100 million for a lot of these deals. I think one's 200 million, if I recall correctly. So 47 million is a lot of money, you and me, but it's not a lot of money when you talk about building such a huge building in today's dollars. So 47 million, it's not a ton of money. It's a lot of money, you and me, but not a lot of money for schools. The other amazing thing is your treasurer did a really good job of working through the numbers and watching the bond retirement fund. And because of the help of your auditor, county auditor, we were able to pay off the 2015 bond. That's the bond that the auditor mentioned that was originally passed in 98, you said? It was refinanced a couple of times for interest savings, which is very important. We shouldn't take our eye off that. Refinanced for interest savings several times, which brought down the millage rate significantly over the years. And then because we had some money in the bond retirement fund, we're paying off the 2015 bonds early. In fact, we already paid it off. So next year, on your tax bill, if this bond issue is not approved, your bond millage is going to go down. And I think that's the key. If you go back to the last page real quick. What you're going to see when you go on the ballot in November, you're going to be in your booth, you're going to be voting. You're going to see 5.4 mils right here, 5.4 mils. You're also going to see, by law, $189. It's going to cost you $189 per $100,000 home. That's what we got to show by law. So when you vote, you're going to see 5.4 mils, $189 per $100,000 home. This is the key, though. I want you to share this with your neighbors, share it with your friends, family members, people you meet on the corner, having drinks with at a bar. Share it with them. Whatever you see on the ballot, think to myself, it's going to be half that. You're going to be paying half of what you see on the ballot. Now, don't hold me to exactly half. It's pretty close to half, though. And what I mean by that is you're going to see on the ballot 5.4 mils, but additional new taxes. So what are you going to see on your tax bill next year above what you're paying currently is only 2.75 mils. So additional new taxes, only 2.75 mils, which equates to only $96.25 for $100,000. Roughly half of what you're going to see on the ballot. It's going to show 189. You're only going to pay 96.25 per $100,000 home. So as you talk to people, always be thinking half. It's half of what you see on the ballot is what your new taxes are going to be. If you go to the next page, next slide, this is just a visual. And it shows currently you're paying 2.65 mils. It was 2.75 mils, and the auditor knows why it dropped, right? Because the home values changed. The auditor's doing his job. He's doing a great job. He's lowering the taxes whenever he can. We lowered to 2.65 mils in 24, this calendar year. Because your treasurer worked with the board, we paid off the bonds early. That gray box goes away. So the new bond millage, only bond millage you're going to pay going forward is 5.4. So additional new taxes is half of what you're going to see on the ballot. And you're going to hear me say that a couple of times. I'm trying to drive that home because that's the biggest thing about this whole bond issue, this whole project. And that's why it makes this such a good situation for your taxpayers, if you choose to vote, and if you choose to vote yes or no. If you go to the next slide, please. This is really hard to see. I'm not going to go over it today. If you want to see this up front, I'm happy to share it with you. We can mail it to you, email it to you. But essentially, this is what you're going to see on the ballot. Biggest thing is, again, $189 per $100,000 home on an annual basis, 5.4 mils. If you go to the next slide, please. For those over 65 and have limited income, which there's a lot of people out there that fall under those bucket, you're not paying $189 because you're over 65 and you're on a limited income. You're only paying $139 a year. Okay? Go to the next slide, please. But again, half. You keep in mind, half is the key word. net additional cost. The net additional cost to the taxpayers is only $96 a year. Less than $100 a year, you're getting $100 million new school facility. Safe, secure, advanced, high technology, something to be proud of. For less than $100 a year per $100,000 home. You look at it on a weekly basis, it's less than $2. You look at it on a monthly basis, it's $8. I'm gonna stop at McDonald's on the way home because I haven't had dinner yet. My McDonald's meal is gonna be more than $8, right? And McDonald's is expensive nowadays, it seems like. So for, the cost of McDonald's for one person is what, on a monthly basis, is what you're getting a $100 million new facility for. And that's additional new taxes. You go to the next slide, please. Again, for those over 65 on a limited income, we're paying $71, half of what I shared with you before. Next slide, please. This is great too, affordability. We're all human, right? We're all human. We always think about our neighbors. My neighbor have a boat. What kind of car does my neighbor drive? What kind of tractor does my neighbor have? You always think about your neighbors and how you kind of stack up against your neighbors. It's probably the worst aspect of being human. But in your case, your affordability is very, very affordable here. And what you can see here, if the voters vote no on the taxes in November, where you're at today currently, you're the most affordable district in Huron County from a tax standpoint. Looking at property tax, school district income tax, you're paying the least amount of taxes from a property tax and school district income tax than any other school district in Huron County. You expand it out to other schools outside of Huron, but close by, you're maybe the second or third most affordable school district in this region. If you expand it out to where I'm from, in Westerville, which is a suburb of Columbus, your son or your cousin, whoever lives down there knows this, our taxes are almost twice this on the same value home. In fact, we have a new bond issue, $120 million bond issue, and an operating levy on. My taxes are going to go up about, I figured out today, it's going to go up about $3,000 a year. My taxes, my home, because of the school district tax and the township tax that's coming in. But suburban areas are way more expensive from a tax standpoint than living in a place like this. I'm a dumb investment banker. I wish I would have lived here. I should have moved my family here. I would have saved a lot of money. But even if the bond issue passes, as you see in the gold, you're no longer going to be the most affordable, but you're second most affordable in Huron County. The only school district more affordable is Willard, and they're only affordable by about $70 a year. So again, very affordable place to live. No one likes to pay taxes. Believe me, I hate paying taxes. But you're a very affordable place to live, and it's a great community to live in. I think the community pride is going to pay off. Again, I tend to talk a lot, so I apologize if there's questions. I'm going over very detailed information. Raise your hand. I'm happy to answer questions. But I'm going to end it on the left. Well, two more slides. Here on the next slide. Oops.
There's a question.
Where's that? Oh, yes, ma'am.
So how long is this for? Is it for 20 years like it was previously?
That's a great question. I should have pointed that out first. Can you go back to the first slide? I should have pointed that out. It's not my fault. It's for 37 years. And before anyone falls out of your seat and says, holy cow, 37 years, that's a crazy long time. We're doing that on purpose. And this was something we thought about. We talked with your superintendent, treasurer, your architects, the board. We talked about this in detail. We could have done 30, we could have done 20 years. We could have done 30 years. We could have done any term we want up to 37 years. And we believed as a team, it's more important in today's world to keep the taxes as the costs as low as possible to the taxpayers, to all the taxpayers. And this is going to be a building, as we talked about the metal roof, going to last a long time. This building is going to last a long time. So it's going to be generations of people taking advantage of this building. So we felt that keep the ask as small as we possibly can, for then more and more people can afford the bond issue, because that's the key. We want you to be able to afford it and make the payment as small as possible. That's why we went 37 years. It's a very good question, but that was one change from last time. The other thing, when you passed the bond issue back in '98, was before my time, before I started doing this for a living. I've been doing this for about 15 years now. But the law changed. And with the law change, it allowed us to go out to a maximum term of 40 years. In the past, the law was different. You couldn't go out as far. That answer your question, okay? Very good question. I appreciate that. Thank you for asking a good question. Anything else from anybody?
Sorry, can I maybe just, one of the other things, when we passed the bond for the high school, it was at 4.33 mils. This last year, when we paid it, it was 2.65. That's because as the district grew and got bigger, there were more people here to pay it. So everybody paid less, which is what Roland was speaking about, making a debt service payment, right? The same thing we expect to happen here. Well, we know it'll happen here because we are growing. So that'll bring the millage down, and the longer you go out, the more we grow, the less everybody pays. So that was kind of part of our thought process.
Yeah, that's why we were able to pay the bond off early. It's because of great management, very proactive treasurer, superintendent board. Because of what they've done, we've been able to refinance those bonds over and over to save money, to bring the millage rate down as well. So thank you. If you go on to the last one, the pie graph. This is the other reason why this is such a good deal for the taxpayers. No matter if you vote yes or no, it's a good deal for the taxpayers. And this is what we were talking about with the architects. The taxpayers are paying a very, very small chunk of this total project. The taxpayers, residential and agriculture, so farmers and residential people, are only paying 38% of this building project. 38%. To say differently, it's like going out to your local dealership and buying a car and negotiating the price down 62%. Would you buy a new car if it gets 62% off the asking price? That's a pretty good deal. I don't know anyone that can negotiate that. But somehow the architect, the superintendent, the treasurer, they worked with the state of Ohio. And they were able to make that state contribution very, very large. The state contribution is about 52%, as the superintendent pointed out. It was less. Garmin Miller really did a good job, along with the treasurer and superintendent, to make that chunk bigger. And then also you got commercial property, you got McDonald's, you got Burger King, all the commercial businesses, industry and public utility that's going to be paying about 10%. So you're only paying 38% of a $100 million project. That's pretty darn good. So that's just rough numbers. But that's why it makes it a very solid opportunity. Now, will this opportunity last forever? And your architects may speak about this. Inflationary costs are going up. It's slowed down. The costs aren't going to come down a whole lot. And if this doesn't pass in November, we'll probably have, how many more tries do we have before we lose our state funding?
It's 16 months from July, so it'll be 2 more tries, so through November 25.
So we have a couple more tries to try it, but we may lose the opportunity to get state funding eventually. On top of that, construction costs are going to go up. They may level off a little bit, but eventually they're going to go up. So the longer we wait, the more expensive it is. Another client of mine is Margaretta. Do you guys know Margaretta? They've been trying to pass a bond issue for a long time. They've been trying to work on a project. They haven't tried to pass a bond issue. They've been trying to work on a project. Because of some things going on there with Nexus Pipeline, they were unable to get to the finish line. Their cost went up from 47 million, I think it was like 69 million over a couple of years. That's a game changer. Who cares about this if we can't get the bond issue passed? 38% on a lot bigger dollar amount is a lot harder to stomach, right? So again, it's a good opportunity. You make a decision if you want to vote yes or no. You're the one that has to make that call. Next slide. Now I'm going to wrap up here quickly. This is what your county auditor is pointing out a little bit. Technology is amazing nowadays. And the school district did a great job. I'm not sure, did you guys put this together? Or?
No, the levy committee.
Levy committee, great job, levy committee. This is amazing. Because this is complicated, I talked about think about half, right? I said that numerous times. You may say, hey, Mike, I don't believe you. You're just some guy out of Columbus. So here's how you can actually look it up yourself and see, and put your own numbers in there. Go to the county auditor website, great website. Look up your home value. Don't look up your home value, look up your tax value, okay? tax value. That includes agriculture. So look up, if you're a farmer, look up the CAUV tax value in there, get your total tax value. Plug it in there. And if you will, what's gonna put your average home in, which is 159,900. That's your average home in the school district. As I said before, an average home is $302. Okay? Think half. Think half. Keep that in mind. Think half. Because the millage falling off, 2.65 mil is falling off because we paid the bonds off early, your net additional costs on an average home in your school district, 159,900 is $153 a year. So I encourage you when you go home tonight, look at this, type in, look up your value, check out the county auditor's website, look up your home value, tax value, make that clear, the tax value. Plug it into this website. I'm sure you can get this link from the school district. It shows exactly what the cost is. This is not some crazy guy from Columbus saying it. This is what it's going to be. Now, one thing you got to keep in mind is the bonds aren't sold yet. I'm very conservative. If you're watching the market, watch Bloomberg, CNN, anything like that. Interest rates are coming down. Again, this is a good time for a bond issue. Good time to pass a bond issue because interest rates are coming down. So this is kind of, I think, almost worst case. If rates come in lower, we're able to sell your bonds at lower interest rates, your costs are going to come down even more. Okay? It's not going to drop $100, don't get me wrong, but it's going to drop a little bit if interest rates come in lower. I'm being conservative. I built some buffer into the interest rate, then all you guys don't get mad at me when I sell the bonds. But I hope the interest rate's going to come in lower, and I think it will. So these numbers will come down a little more. So I took about 20 minutes or so, I think that was longer than I should have had. But any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate you walking me through the numbers. I really like that. If you go back to your slides, I did have a question though, just for clarification. I think it is good if you go back to the slides. You showed the pie graph where residents are paying 38.1% on 100 million. But if you go back to any of your previous slides, like just go back one, or even this one, or even this one. And the upper right, it says 47.78 million. So should that be 38.1 million? Or what is this number compared to the pie graph? It doesn't, the 38 versus you're showing us 47.
Good question. The 47 is the amount of the bond issue. The total amount of the project is around 100 million. So what I showed in the pie graph is the percentage that the taxpayer, percentage of the project costs that the taxpayers are responsible for. Okay? So
Not
that-
a dollar amount, it's a percentage amount.
Yeah, it's
Right,
not.
but if it's 100 million, percentage amount is 38.1 million, right?
Yeah, but the taxpayers, the 47 million,
Is in that 38%?
Right.
this
You have
and
to
this,
add those up.
add these two up.
Add those two up, because of the 47 million that it is, 38% is paid by residential, agricultural, and then the rest of it is paid by
Okay, the
businesses.
same amount is being paid by residential, and say that same numbers you're showing is being paid by commercial.
47 is the amount of the bond issue,
Yeah,
and the bond issue is being repaid by voters, residents, and agricultural farmers,
Yep.
as well as commercial businesses, industrial businesses.
at the same
and all
rate you
that.
just showed us.
Yeah.
So it's, okay, got it.
Well, commercial, yeah, no, residential and agricultural, this is a rolling question here, pay one rate, and commercial, public utility pays a different rate. So they pay, if you think, well, they don't have a $100,000 home, but $100,000 property, they're paying a different rate than what we showed. Because
Okay.
they're taxed at a different rate. And they're taxed differently, like, we don't have a Nexus pipeline here, but pipelines are taxed on the capitalized cost, right, the cost to build. So it's taxed at a different rate.
Yeah,
But
no,
of the whole bond, they would be paying that percent of it.
that makes sense. I'm just saying, and I think it's still a good thing to go forward with, don't get me wrong. It's just the numbers don't align with me with what you're saying. 47 million for 38% of the residential, if it's that amount of the cost. I don't know if you're following my question.
Right, no,
Yeah.
so when you add it together, you get to your,
Yeah, but you just said it's a different rate. It's not the 5.4 mil. So that's what I'm saying.
well, no. Maybe Roland can explain it, but it is still 5.4 mils for a commercial
Okay,
person,
perfect.
but
I'm good. Okay, I'm good. Yeah, then it's just the same rate, then you
Right.
show
It is.
that the chart's the same rate no matter what's going on.
Yep, all I was trying to show is how much the taxpayers, a portion of the project, the taxpayers paying on a percentage basis. And if you add residents and non-residents up, it comes out to about 48 million. I said the project cost is about 100 million. You see where the numbers kind of fall in. But very good question. I appreciate you looking at that detail. And those are really good questions. That's what I want to answer those kind of questions. That's why I made the trip up here. So there's other questions like that. I'm happy to answer that. But this is a really good story. And I hope you're able to go home tonight and talk to your neighbors and friends and people you know in grocery stores or whatever and get the word out. Because the biggest obstacle why people are going to vote no is they're going to see 5.4 mils and they're going to see the $189 a year. I'm going to say that's just too much on my $400,000 home. But you got to remind them that's not what you're going to be paying. You're going to be paying half of that. Some may still say that's too much. I don't know. That's their prerogative. But it's half of that. So that's the story I need you guys to help kind of get out to your neighbors and friends and stuff. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we do have our school board here, and they would like to say a few things about their thoughts on the project, why they voted to place it in front of everyone. So I guess we'll start with whoever would like to start.
So my name is Allison Crawford, for anyone who doesn't know me. I made some notes, because if not, I could talk and get, talk and talk. I really don't have a lot to add than what has already been said tonight, but, yes, I am a board member, but first, I'm a parent. I have 4 children in this district. My oldest is a senior, my youngest is in 2nd grade, and then I got a couple in between. I have been one of those parents that went to 4 buildings in the morning. While the principals see me, I'm looking a little rough in the morning, but I know how difficult it is. There are also 4 buildings at different times, an hour apart, and it's not easy on parents, the traffic, everything like that, and that's just a little reason. Also, the transition. I currently have a 2nd grader and a 4th grader. My youngest in 2nd grade is always like, why am I not in school with Abby? Why am I not in the same school? Why can't I be with her? And that might not mean a lot to some people, but that support of having that older sibling in the same building is just one of those little things that would make a difference. I also want to talk about some things I've seen either in person talking to people about this project or online. There is nobody that has not been affected by this economy and inflation. No matter how much you make a year or what, you are affected, and we understand that. But if we would have had this project done a couple years ago, it would have cost us a lot less. So by not doing it, we're not saving any money because these 100-year-old buildings are going to get older. My daughter currently has to go down 2 flights of stairs to use the restroom in school. That might not mean a lot to you, but do any of us have to do that really? Anywhere we go, where we work, where we live? No. I mean, it's archaic really. It's not just about air conditioning. It's about the whole building and what kind of material it's in right now, and what's it going to be in 5 years and 10 years. It's not going to be cheaper to build. A lot of people talk about how we built this beautiful building and what it costs. Look how much that value has changed. We're going to be paying a lot more, and we need to talk about long-term. I think Mr. Ketch said it best. I mean, we're talking about value. We need to think about long-term. So we're building this building, and it's going to last for years to come. So it's only going to cost more to try to do it later. $52 million from the state. That percentage also can change. So that is based off our community right now, what our value is. If we wait a couple years, not only will the cost go up, but we might get less money from the state. We likely will. So we're going to pay more and we're going to get less support from the state. It was funny because I actually wrote this down, but Mr. Burns stole it from me. I personally probably buy an $8 coffee once a week. Don't tell my husband.
Once?
All right. I said at least once a week. And speaking of, Coach Norris has my kids 3 nights a week. Afterwards, we like to run through McDonald's. 15, even if you look at the larger amount, I'm paying more than that to run through McDonald's for my whole family. If you're looking at $15.75, if you're not counting the discount of the building. So I understand that it's more, we're asking people to pay more, but for me, if you think about that amount, that's for a brand new building to support our kids. It doesn't seem like something I can't do, and I'm hoping that people look at it that way. When you say $100 million, yeah, it's a terrible number to hear, but when you really break that down to what that is a month or what that is a year, it's not enough to support her. It's not too much to support our district. Also, we have, I've been on the board for 3 years, we have an administration that is bringing more and more to our district, more programs, more arts, more music. I can't wait to see what they can do with a bigger building and more space. I mean, that is what matters to our kids. More, educational programs. I think that that's what sets us apart. And like Mr. Cooley said, everyone says, oh, well, I'm moving to the district when we're looking at recruiting in my business. What's great about Norwalk? I mean, they can't shut me up. Let me tell you why you want to choose Norwalk City School District, not because I'm on the board, because I'm a parent. Let me tell you why. Why are we better? What are we offering? The other day, somebody was coming in, looking at our district, and they said something about a high school student. I said, well, we don't have to pay for driver's education. They're like, what? I mean, that's not today, just these things that make us stand apart, and we can do so much more with a bigger building. And then Mr. Cooley also said, we have educators and support staff driving in between buildings, and they have to somehow put that into their whole schedule. We just need to be efficient. This is how we be efficient. This is how we stand apart. And as Joyce said, it will bring people in. It's not just an opinion. It happened with this high school. The more people that come into our community, the more they'll help pay for it. So it likely will go down. And then the other thing I want to say is I saw a lot of questions about the buildings. A lot of people think we should already have that planned out. It will take a few years to build this if we pass it in November. I have absolutely no doubt in this administration that not only are they going to build and plan a beautiful building, they're going to have the best ideas for what we have left. What are we going to do with Maplehurst? What are we going to do with Pleasant? There's ideas, but we don't have to have those answers right now because we'll have a few years and those things might change. We might have offers. We might need more residential. What I do know is we will have great plans and we're going to take community input and we're going to make sure that we do the best we can with what we have left. And we also have money that might come in from selling those. So there's all these factors, but again, I don't mean to repeat everything that everyone said, and they're much more familiar than me, but as a parent, I really hope to see this building built, and as a board member, this is one of the few reasons why we voted yes to put it in the ballot.
Could I interject something here? Not necessarily to you, Allison. That was very nice, thank you. I have been put in the fun position of being in charge of communications for the levy committee, and it has been pretty fun so far. I do not want to go out of this room with people thinking that there are two 100-year-old buildings in this district, because that is not correct. League School was built in 1913, but the part of Main Street School that was originally built, as Norwalk High School, with the Cole building next door as the junior high, that part that is still standing was built in 1939. I do not want anybody going around Norwalk and saying that, because it's not correct. Oh, you're talking about Benedict. There are no students there. Yeah. Well, actually, yes, that's true, because Paul Brown went to school there through 5th grade. Yeah, actually, I had to do a lot of studying about Paul Brown, for obvious statute reasons. But yeah, so just make sure then, if you are going to talk about two 100-year-old buildings, that people understand that it is Benedict where there are no students, because Main Street School was built in 1939.
Close enough.
That's all I got.
Close enough. Are you saying something?
Go ahead.
You want to go?
I'll keep it brief because I don't really have a lot to say or anything prepared, but
I'm Jeremy Norris, board member. Thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate seeing everybody here, especially some of the students up there in the stand. At one time, I had 5 kids in 5 different buildings here in this district. And I take my kids to school every morning, so I was going from school to school to school to school. So I understand the lines. I understand the parents that have to give their kids hugs and kisses and say, "Did you get your homework done?" When you're sitting there in the drop-off line, you're like, "Move your kid out of the car." I remember, I understand that. I get what it's like because I've been there. Now I have 3 kids in 2 different buildings, and next year I'll have 2 kids in 1 building. I couldn't imagine having my kids across the street and in this building and being able to take 5 minutes to drop my kids off rather than an hour and a half. You know, it's just something that I think would be amazing to be able for parents to do so they can go on about their day, saving money and gas. And the traffic congestion in Norwalk alone, all the kids going to different schools and parents driving all over the place is just insane. I think it would be great to have a building across the street, like Allison said, bringing in new programs and stuff like that. I'm adamant about bringing in an FFA. I really want the future farmers of America here in this school. I'm just throwing that out there, Ty. I'm not giving up on that. But I think if we had a bigger school and more people, we'd bring more kids in, we have a lot of kids in the community that would be in that program, and many other programs that we're doing. So I just think it's for the state to be paying so much of this right now is just amazing, and we cannot pass up this deal. This is the best deal that we're going to get, and pay as little as we can. So, thank you.
PreK-8. I'm also on the school board. I have a little 2-year-old who will be a future trucker. So I'm hoping we get the school built. She can start there, maybe one of the first kiddos in. But I'm also a school psychologist for Sandusky City Schools. So I work in education. I took notes. Sorry, I'm not great on the spot. Mr. Cooley had previously mentioned all the different transitions that our students go through. And I know attendance is a huge initiative for Norwalk City Schools. Across a lot of different school districts, we're seeing a drop in attendance. And part of that is because of increased anxiety. And so with having those transitions, these students are building relationships, and then they move on to another school. And then they build relationships, and then they move on to another school. So to help kind of decrease those internalizing behaviors of not being able to build relationships, they could have familiar faces throughout the building. Maybe as a reward for doing work going down. So mental health is a huge factor, I think, that transitions affect. But additionally, like aligning. So having all, PreK-8 in one building and aligning your academic expectations, your curriculums, being able to talk with teachers that you are passing students on to, what those students needed differentiation-wise to be successful. This school brings that kind of opportunity as well, which would ultimately increase test scores. It would increase, positive behavior. We're putting it back into our society of Norwalk, just all around a better society. Same thing with special education. So, you have your students who are on IEPs, they have special needs, and just being able to communicate or have similar resources or access to similar things that they, had the previous year. Rather than having to, again, re-navigate a building, figure out what those resources are. And if you work in education, you know that there's a huge teacher shortage. We have had several retirements over the past few months. And so building a new school could also attract more teachers to come here and make Norwalk a more competitive, place of employment. So those are all the reasons, plus so many more, that I think a new school would be beneficial for this district. Thank you.
I won't go up there because of a back problem I have, so I'm going to sit right here. I want to speak before Eric gets up here, because Eric is a whale of a speaker. But I've taught, Ralph Ritzthaler is my name. I've been on the board for a number of years now, and I've seen an awful lot of this district because I worked here for 33 and a third years. And I was at Monroeville first, but Norwalk brought me on here and I was happy to do this. I've worked for Wayne, worked for Denny, worked for Virginia Polling. I mean, these guys, people were the superintendents at that time. What I want to tell you is that I've heard a lot of people come to me and say, hey, Ralph, you've been in this district an awful long time. Can't we remodel these buildings? Well, yeah, they could be remodeled, but I'll tell you something that's going on. When I was at Maplehurst, I was there my entire life, taught 4th grade and 1 year of 5th grade. We'd have computers on everybody when they first came out, 5 computers per room. We'd all turn them on. Circuit breaker just popped. Now, they started randomly shutting down sections of Maplehurst, principals did, to make sure we had the electric power on. Well, I guess they want to ration the electricity for us. I thought maybe there's a grid problem. No, there's no grid problem. There's a circuit breaker box problem. We can't handle it all. The kids in my class had assignments to do on the 5 computers, and they were pretty much on almost all the time because, you know, you got to share 5 computers with 25 or 28 kids. They don't save anything. You tell them, please save your work. Make sure you do that. Well, when the electric goes out, all of a sudden you hear stuff going on, words I don't think 4th graders should say, but, you know, it was hard. It was very difficult. Then you talk about air conditioning. Boy, it was wonderful when we come out to the high school here and these kids are out here wearing sweaters and 90-degree days, you know. But the kids of Maplehurst and League and the other schools around here, we didn't have the air. We knew that. When I was at Maplehurst, the windows were from the ceiling to almost the floor. There were cabinets there, so it went ceiling to cabinets. The sun came in there in the morning. I had every window open that I could, every fan on, and it was about 90 when we started school. So what do we do in the hot days? I told them, we're going out and we're going underneath the trees, and if you don't do your lessons out there, we're not going to do this. We're going to go in the bake oven. Believe me, they took me seriously because they didn't want to go back in. Again, that was going to be, you know, if you bring air conditioners in, put them in each classroom, like Virginia said, it's not going to work, Ralph, and you know it. Scott Ford, who you know, did the same thing. Told him about air conditioning. Brought one in. Virginia said, you're going to take that out because we can't handle the grid. You know, so he took his out. I didn't bring one in. After he told me that, I thought, don't do that, Ralph. So it was hot, but we did it. We struggled. But I was thinking, boy, it would be nice to have a building with air conditioning. So we have the time right now to do this. I think I was on Wayne's case about one time. We need a new elementary building bad. And this was back in the 90s. I think I said it to Denny, and they were all for it. But they said we got to do something first with high school kids. So that we did. Now it's the little kids' turn. We need to do something for them. Now's the time. 52 million from the state. Wow, when I heard that figure, let's grab it. Eric, I guess that's going to listen to this guy.
I don't have anything prepared per se, but I do have some thoughts. So first, let me just tell you what I'm not. I am not an auditor with all due respect to Mr. Ketch. I'm also not a banker, not an architect. I'm also not an educator. But what I am is a dad who's got a couple kids in this district trying to give his kids every opportunity for success that I can possibly give. I also am someone who respects this community more than I can even describe, which I think is the reason why I feel like we have got to be as honest as we possibly can with each and every member of this community. And if we're being honest with this community, the reality of this project is it will require a sacrifice. There's no question about that. It will require us to bear a burden. The question is the sacrifice worth it? Here's what I would say. Here's what I've witnessed over my time as a board member. I've witnessed this district, these administrators, do everything within their power to mitigate the sacrifice. They've mitigated the sacrifice by going to the state and securing $50 million towards this project. That mitigates the sacrifice. Joyce and her team have looked at our investments and paid off the high school, this very building that we're in, early. That mitigates the sacrifice. Again and again, I've seen people pursue grants. It happens in the cafeteria where we're getting free lunches for our students, for our kids, for our sons, for our daughters. Mr. Ballman again and again is trying to find grants and dollars so we can get yonder pouches and driver's ed and programs for gifted students and programs for special needs students. These things offer value to our district. These things set us apart from other districts. But here's the reality. This project isn't free. It's going to require a sacrifice. Here's what I heard once. Every generation is comprised of the sons and daughters of the sacrifice of the generations that preceded it. Every generation is comprised of sons and daughters of the sacrifice of the generation that preceded it. So I would just say this. I would just say it's our turn. I would just say it's our generation now that has to make some sacrifices so that the next generation can succeed. That's why this project is important. That's why it's worth it. And that's why I think you should consider voting for it. Thanks.
At this time, we'll open it up to public participation. Anybody who would like to speak can come have the floor.
Step right down.
Come on down.
My name's Wayne Babcock, and 50 years ago, in August, I started teaching in the Norwalk City schools. At Benedict Elementary School, one of those 100-year-old buildings. A lot has changed over those 50 years. One of the biggest things is this facility that we're sitting in right now. The one thing that hasn't changed is our elementary buildings. It's time for a change. It's time for an upgrade. Now, I get to wear this, I was a teacher, I was a principal, assistant superintendent, now I'm a substitute bus driver. And another great job I have is that Brad cannot do. I'm a retired superintendent. I can wear this T-shirt. He can't. So I can be a passionate advocate for this new building. And you're right, Ralph. Since the 90s, we needed a new building. When I started 50 years ago, we needed a new building. So I'm going to do everything in my power in the next 35, 36 days to get this issue passed. It's a generational opportunity that we can't pass by. And what I'm afraid of, if we do not pass this now, we're going to go to the bottom of the list, and I'm not going to be able to see it in my lifetime. So I don't want that to happen. And I urge the support of all my fellow Norwalkians to get behind this project. And we got 35 days to do it. Thank you.
Stay there.
So we both came out of retirement. There we go, Phil, come on up.
I missed the memo.
We were determined when this came up and we saw the dollar amount that the state would come up with, we were determined to make sure that this passed. And so Wayne and I met, was it McDonald's? I can't remember where it was. And we said, hey, we got to step up. And my wife, who always wants me to back off a little bit, she says, you and Wayne got to get up there and help chair this whole process. And we've got Phil to join in with us because we care so much what happens. In 2008, the Facilities Commission came to Wayne and the board and said, hey, you guys need to look at your buildings and so on. You need to make some changes and so on. And when it came down to it, they said, sorry, your number's not coming up. In 2013, 2014, they came to our board and to myself. We did a study, we looked at our buildings and so on. And they said, sorry, your number's not up right now. You're not going to get the money. And so when they came to Brad and the board, they said, your time is now. We do have $52 million for you. Oh my God. Our time is now. Our time is now.
It's $52 million of our money.
That's
We need-
right.
We need to
That's
keep in Norwalk, because if it doesn't go to Norwalk, it's gonna go to a school down the road, somebody else, and that's our money, we need to take advantage of it.
And hence our slogan, now for Norwalk. Yeah, now for Norwalk. And we have a lot of the committee members here that can stand up. We've been meeting since July, early July?
Yeah.
Early July. We've been putting a lot of time, and we realize that this is a generational undertaking we're taking on right now. And we live in a beautiful community, and we realize that this is a major opportunity for to maintain this beautiful quality of life that we have in this community by investing in our educational infrastructure.
Generations and generations.
Yes.
We're not looking at the kids that are going to schools now, we're thinking about kids, our kids, having kids, moving forward.
And it's also about
Make it amazing a community and bring, make, people will come here when we have this school. It's good for the entire community.
And it's also about retaining the brain drain. I'm fourth generation in Norwalk City schools. My grandmother went to League Street. My dad went to League Street. I went to Benedict, and my kids went to League Street. So I moved back here because again, quality of life issue. And nowadays, a lot of people can work remotely. But my wife works for a German company, has to check in twice a year to New York City, and lives in Norwalk. And so that's something, having Norwalk. Yeah. Plucked out of London, Norwalk. But anyways, it's the big picture. The big picture is what we're trying to purvey. And what's good for Norwalk City schools, good for Norwalk Catholic schools to be also, because that's another thing that's popped up about why should they, be concerned about
It makes Norwalk better.
It does
Just
make
does. Absolutely.
Community.
Thank you.
Do you have a question? Do you want to
Yes.
speak?
Just one quick question. Where do we stand with the land as of this moment? I know we've kind of gone back and forth, and I've heard different things.
We currently own 20 acres. Brad finished.
Doing well.
We currently own 20 acres over there.
OFCC would like us to get to 37, so that was communicated earlier. We are confident things can happen in the new year.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions? Any other questions? We have some serious brain power in the room here, so I point to other people clearly that if you want to ask questions. Yes.
How is the response coming from when you've had other meetings such as this, or speaking to small groups?
So we have spoken to Lions, the Lions Club, and we were at Hunter's Glen. Those were the first two of our recently publicized dates. So we had public dates and then we have private dates. So we've been at two. So one's more club-based and one is Hunter's Glen. Those are, Joyce and I actually love talking to people. We wish and hope everybody in this community who is a voter would hear this message. That is the concern, that people may know and have heard about taxes because they've got that green card from our county auditor. They've received that, and I'm in a frenzy because that's all I know. And what they may not understand is it's the divided in half. The 189 for 100K home, which looking around, there aren't a lot of 100K homes here. I live on Liberty. You're at that 230 price point. It's $1,825 a month. That's what it is. That's what we're looking at. But that's the concern, because I think there's a large portion of our residents that aren't hearing that message.
So how do you get it more out there?
So we're going to different places. So we have Eagles is next Tuesday. We're at Norwalk Public Library. We're at the brand new Wild and Free Coffee. We're at Sherry's. We're at a lot of different places. So if there are 15, if there are 20 individuals who show up, that is well worth our time to talk to 15 or 20 people. I think Dr. Babkin spoke as to what I can and can't do. I've talked to Tim Tarvin, who helps with Garmin Miller now. He was the former superintendent at Shelby. We need to talk to parents. We have parents in this room tonight, but there are parents, busy lives, and not able to show up at those 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock meetings that we hold. So what are we able to do on that school grounds while he or she is waiting in a parent line for your pickup for your child? That we're able to say, from a factual standpoint, do you have questions about this issue? What can I answer for those things? Because I understand from our own student population, I did a one call last night, which is a call that goes out to all of our students. 6,450 are the people that received that call, inviting them to be here tonight. So you know that difficulty of what that is, because they need to have that information, because you need to know the net increase is 275. My Norwalk existence began in 2002. All I know is what I've been paying this time. So to me, I am speaking about the net increase, and that's what people need to hear, because the 5.4 mils and the 189 and 100K home, that can be concerning for some. But when people hear that message, when you say what the advantages and what this is a game changer, and then like I said, it's not just for our kids, it is our community. It is our community, because the last place I want to be is somewhere where like you drive through and like, this is where our kids have to attend. You know districts nearby that you drive by and you're like, it's sad. And yes, you could say we're Team Norwalk, but we're educators. We want everybody to be in a good space with that technology, with room, flexible learning. We want that to happen everywhere. And it is saddening to see other places that didn't step up and make that, as Eric stated, that move to let's make this happen when the time is right. Yes.
So I'm curious, I don't know if we can send out a fact sheet, but I had a conversation with a person. The conversation went, did you look at how much our property taxes went up? Did you get that card? Okay, that was one conversation. Said the same person was at one of the football games, got the fact sheet. So the first conversation was, did you get this? No one's gonna vote for that levy. No one's gonna do it. Second conversation was, when you look at that fact sheet, that's no brainer. You vote yes. Same person, two different conversations. Like, so if there's a way that we can continue to get those fact sheets out, not everybody attends all the sporting events. I don't know if a fact sheet can go out on Peach Star.
It would be amazing
I don't
if
know.
some news organizations could make a headline saying that it's cut in half.
Well, if you hear anybody you want us to speak to, just let us know. I mean, we'll come out and talk to anybody. Just let us know.
We also, unfortunately, we had a rain out on Reading Under the Lights, but it's also fortunate because we moved it to October 15th. We have an amazing bond committee. I'm really hoping that we all together can come up with an idea to reach a lot of those parents. I know that I never miss it. I know so many parents go because it's an amazing night. I'm really hoping that we can reach some of the parents with that fact sheet to make sure that our parents who maybe want to support it but are unsure financially can see what a great deal it is. I think that's going to be a great time. And then also maybe Brad can share all the other dates that we have coming up. And the bond committee has an amazing social media presence, working out really well. But yeah, any help we can get, getting the word out, we'll take it.
I had an individual yesterday, I was at a meeting, and said, hats off to you for trying this in Norwalk. I'm like, trying? What are you saying, trying this in Norwalk? This person, and like I said, I'm not playing, because these are our friends, these are our neighbors. Another school district just outside of Norwalk says, hats off for trying. You saw the chart that Mike Byrne showed. We passed this. If this passes in November, we're still under, we still pay less taxes than that other district. So I was at that meeting, and it would have been appropriate for me to say, well, by the way, you could move to Norwalk. It'd be a huge advantage to you. I let it go of hats off, and we're trying some, impossible charge. It's not an impossible charge. Yes.
I think a good way to get the word out is to go to the social media that we have, the Now for Norwalk Facebook page, the Now for Norwalk webpage. And right now, this meeting is being videotaped with YouTube. You can go to that video, that YouTube, and share it on your Facebook. Set it to public, share it to, let everybody see that so they can get the same information if they can't make it to one of the meetings.
Yes.
Karen Berry, I'm on the committee, but I'm also a teacher for Huron City Schools and have some experience a little bit with that. We had some painful years of trying to get operation levies passed in that district. They're working now to come to the facilities levy, probably a couple of years down the road. We're looking at it now. So it's a long process. I know one of the things that worked for our operation committee was that the superintendent, the treasurer went to, we call it the donut shop, where the older people that are not on social media, they're not getting any of that information, they complain about everything. The superintendent, they went there and met with them and met with them and met with them. So do you have any plans to go to the Burger King hangout or the senior center?
So one that I failed to mention, we have senior center, that's actually on our publicized list, so we are talking to senior center. But yeah, we have several dates, the Sherry's, Wild and Free, the rec center is the come and go, because some of these, we don't need 2 hours. We don't need 2 hours to cover points. Let's be honest here. Some of these we can talk for 30 seconds, say boom, boom, boom. Is that not a slam dunk?
Have a fact sheet in hand to hand to the seniors.
With those simple points for those limited income people that are no.
Yes.
Oh, wait.
And don't understand.
Right.
Right.
I'm there.
Right.
Yes.
So we will spend our time and talk to anybody. It's enjoyable, and I'd like to have tonight that we would fill the Performing Arts Center next door. We have what we have, and it doesn't matter because whoever's in front of you is important, and we're gonna spend the time talking. So if it's some of these events that we have and there are 3 people, you talk to 3 because that story matters, the narrative matters. And like I said, we have a great message to sell. There's no trickery here. It's pretty straightforward what we're trying to do here. So yes, if you tell me I should go to Burger King and McDonald's and all of those places, I will add those to the list outside of coffee as a non-coffee drinker. I'm still spending 3 and 4 hours there.
These guys don't pay Terry's price for coffee.
Gotcha. The 50-cent coffee crowd, not the $6. I gotcha. Any other points or questions for tonight?
What about like the factories that are around here, like just being there in the morning when they're going in? Because those are the people we're missing, right? Like they're working a lot of odd hour shifts or multiple jobs at this point, right? Like if you catch even some of them, because those are the people that aren't able to take their kids to school in the morning. Like that was me less than 4 years ago. I couldn't take my kids to school in the morning, right? So this isn't anything I would have even been able to do working 12-hour shifts.
Right.
So I don't know if that's even a thing, like going to the nurses that are at the hospital for 12 hours who miss morning pickups and drop-offs, right? Like that sort of thing. I don't know if that's frowned upon, but that's the demographic you're missing.
Right, and we can present information, but legally we cannot advocate for or against the levy.
Okay.
So there's that. And to Robin's point about the property taxes, which is why I asked the county auditor here, just because you're seeing that valuation come and it says your valuation went up, whatever, mine went up $50,000, okay? That doesn't mean that your taxes will go up corresponding to what that valuation is, because we have effective millage. That means your millage rolls back, because a levy can never bring in more than it originally did. And the same thing with the debt service. It only brings in enough to pay it. So I just want everybody not to be scared when they get their little green postcard and see, go and check and see that it went way up, because it does not mean that your taxes will go up that same amount. Yes, they're probably gonna go up. We have what's called inside millage, 10 mills that does not get factored back, so they will go up by that. But it's not gonna go up corresponding to whatever your increase was. And just as an FYI, this year, 2024, everyone in the North City School District paid less in taxes, thanks to our county auditor. It may not have been a lot, right? Maybe $4, maybe $20, the rate's different, but it did go down. And I think that's important because you never think the taxes will go down, right? But they did.
And Joyce, that's a really good point. I was really scared too when my taxes went up. And percentage down in Western went up by about 35, 36% increase across the board, which is a lot more than it was here in Huron. But when I actually saw my tax bill, the dollar amount didn't increase 35%. So Joyce brings up a really good point. most school taxes are collected on an effective basis. So as the tax values go up, the millage rate goes down. So there's not much of the tax revenue that comes in is going to increase for the schools. Now, cities, library districts, storm fire districts, they all operate differently. I'm not sure what you have in the school district. But the best way to answer that question is that you see that green paper stinks right now, absolutely. But I would encourage them to take that green paper, go home, pull up the website, look at that calculator, find your home value, and see what your taxes really are. That's the key. That's really gonna show how much your taxes are gonna go up. So I would encourage people to do that and not just be scared by the handout. So, very good questions. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I only got rolling, what, one drink a month, I think, my tax increase.
You have more.
No.
You have more. I'll look away.
I only have two.
You always have more, but, yeah, I'm kidding. All right, I appreciate you all being here. Thank you, those on the levy committee. Thank you for all the work you've done. It's critical. We are excited. It's an exciting time for our community. Like I said, it is community. It's not just inside Norwalk school district people. This is community. This is a game changer for our entire community. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah.